they lay over and die at the hands of the Minnesota Lynx, who beat them 109-78. The defense is a mess. The offense is a mess. The Vegas Aces, who I was so sold on, JY, bouncing back and being one of the absolute best teams in this league, are average at best.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Want to hear a crazy stat, guys, with this Pittsburgh Pirates team? I brought this up yesterday. Out of 106 games, they have been involved in 27 shutouts, 13-4, 14 against. Over 1 out of every 4 Pittsburgh Pirate games ends in a shutout. How crazy is that?
Total is 8 tonight.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
One big problem for NBC, too many on-air cooks for the coverage, particularly on the weekends. Having 4 on-air teams separate time, divide the time, was really outrageous. You had Mike Tirico and his partner. You had Dan Hicks, NBC Sports' lead golf commentator, and his partner. You had Steve Sands from Golf Channel and his partner. And you had Terry Gann, who, by the way, if you don't know, is going to become an NBA play-by-play voice.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Just more and more smoke, leading to the fire that is Keegan Bradley being on this team as a player.
Yeah, I think we're all expecting it at this point. And, Keegan, he knows he can't play poorly in the playoffs. Like, he knows he needs to keep momentum going. And if he continues to play well, he's going to be on this team.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Good afternoon. Happy Friday. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish, and we had a wild Major League Baseball trade deadline, and we're going to break it all down for you here on the show. You talk about players can't go home again. Well, that indeed happened yesterday. Also, get ready for some college football. Just a few Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays away from the first college football game in Week 0. We're going to bring in our good buddy Bill Bender, and also Pat Evans is with us from Legal Sports Report. That and a whole lot more on this edition of the show. We got so many trades to get to in baseball, and I don't even know that we have enough time to do it, but we'll try to get to our best here. Let's start off with the biggest name, I think it's fair to say, moved on trade deadline day. May not be the best player, but the biggest name. That's Carlos Correa, World Series champion, of course, with the Houston Astros, and then went on to play for the Minnesota Twins, waived his no-trade clause to go back and play third base for the Houston Astros, as the Twins were sellers and Houston was buyers. So they make this deal. Now, Jeremy Pena, their shortstop, is going to stay at short. Correa will fill the void that was left this offseason by Alex Bregman. And then, of course, Isaac Paredes, their third baseman, is hurt. So Correa will play every day at third. Here's how the deal went down, according to their general manager, Dana Brown.
It's a big energy boost for us right now. Particularly coming off a few losses during our homestand. We got those last 2 games, which we felt really good about. But now you get the trade deadline with a day off. You get to hit reset, and you have Correa coming back to the city. You have him stepping into that locker room. A lot of familiar faces, close knit guys like family members. He brings energy every day to the ballpark. And so this is a big move for the team, for the city, for where we're going in the future. And we feel like we added this guy, and he's just going to bring a lot, not only as a player, but as a human being, and his leadership skills and the energy that he's going to bring to this club. So I'm fired up because I've only known him, as an opponent. And I remember when I was with the Braves, we played against you guys, and I'm just dying to meet this guy, and I've heard so many great things about him, and I've seen his actions on the field. He brings it every day.
And Correa expected to be in the starting lineup this weekend for the Astros. Meanwhile, the Padres, very active once again on trade deadline day. They end up making arguably the biggest deal of the day by getting the great reliever Mason Miller from the Sacramento A's. They also got Ryan Hearn and outfielder Ramon Laureano from the Orioles. The Rangers did late trade for Diamondback starter Merrill Kelly, who's having a nice year, 3.22 earned run average. Zach Gallen on Arizona stayed put. And the Yankees ended up adding Camilo Doval, David Bednar, and Jake Bird to bolster their bullpen. First, let's start off with A.J. Preller on the flurry of trades that he made at the deadline.
Yeah, I think as a group, over the last few weeks, we talked about, having a few needs with the big league team, probably adding a couple of bats, addressing left field and the bench, looking at the catching spot and seeing if there's a possibility to change the mix a little bit there. And then, potentially looking at the rotation, whether from the depth standpoint, obviously getting Michael King hopefully back soon and you coming back and pitching has been a big boost, but adding some depth to the rotation and then, potentially adding some impact as well to the mound, which, kind of goes back into that, you can never have enough arms and never enough impact arms. So that was kind of the wish list over the last few weeks. And I think we've taken a team that's, I think, in position to play in the playoffs and a very good team and hopefully rounded it out and given Schulte and the coaching staff an opportunity to do their thing.
And the Yankees add bullpen pieces, as I mentioned. Looks like Camilo Doval will now be part of the ninth inning equation, joining Devin Williams in New York. Here's General Manager Brian Cashman on their moves.
We've improved the team, we believe. We tried to address the areas of need. We've added to the bullpen. We've improved the position player group as well, giving our manager more choices, to play matchup and. So whether it's we're facing left-handed pitching, he's got some choices to play with some right-handed bats we've imported with Rosario and Slater. We have obviously with Jose Caballero, we got a nice athletic infielder that he can, that can defend and pinch run, at a high level. So that's a nice weapon of choice. He's certainly got more arms to mix and match with out of the pen, with the new additions as well. And obviously we solidified third base with Ryan McMahon. So I think we've addressed a lot of areas of need to try to give us the best shot we can take.
Other trades at the deadline, the Rays acquire a couple of pitchers. They get Adrian Hauser and Griffin Jacks to bolster the rotation in the bullpen. The Cubs traded for Twins utility man Willie Castro, who has 2 home runs this season. And the Red Sox were pretty quiet on deadline day, but they do get Dustin May from the Dodgers to add to their pitching rotation and bullpen. Also, Charlie Morton, the ageless wonder, his career rolls on, now goes to the Detroit Tigers, and he'll join the rotation led by Tariq Skubal and company. The Reds get Miguel Andujar from the A's, and the Astros also made a second deal with the Marlins by adding Jesus Sanchez to bolster their outfield group going into the postseason run. The Marlins, by the way, fairly quiet on deadline day. Some expectation that players would be traded, including one pitcher, Sandy Alcantara. He was not dealt yesterday and will remain with the club, as the person that's talking right now reported that yesterday here on SportsGrid. All right, now let's get to the action yesterday in Major League Baseball. The Yankees beat the Rays 7-4. Long rain delay in this one, by the way, 2 hours, 45 minutes. Ben Rice, Giancarlo Stanton ended up homering. And the Yankees are on the road here in Miami this week. George Kirby, 6 shutout innings. The Mariners beat the Rangers 6-0. Crazy game, by the way, yesterday between the Reds and Braves. Both teams scored 8 runs in the 8th inning. It's the first time in history that's ever happened. And 12-11 the final. The Braves end up winning that game. All right, now let's go to the National Football League. Yes, there was a preseason game to get to, but that's not the top story of the NFL today. It is Terry McLaurin, the wide receiver of the Washington Commanders, who's had enough. Doesn't want a new contract with Washington, says he prefers a trade. He's been looking for an extension for the past few months. He did report to camp, but it seems like nothing's getting done. Said yesterday he prefers to move on. We'll see how Washington ends up reacting to this. Naturally, they're in no position to have to grant him a trade, but we'll see if this ends up happening before the season begins or if McLaurin ends up playing with Jaden Daniels for another season. Same could be said for Micah Parsons in Dallas. His contract situation continues to roll on. There's more reports this morning. Diana Rossini says that their relationship is basically over. and the Cowboys are not any closer to a new contract than they were several months ago, and Jerry Jones prefers to deal with Parsons himself as opposed to his agent. Needless to say, none of this stuff is working well for Jerry Jones. I got to get this figured out before the season begins. All right, preseason began last night, 34-7 the final, in case you missed it. The Chargers end up going wild on the Detroit Lions in game one. You usually don't see 41 points scored in the first preseason game, but Trey Lance, who's now on the Chargers, had his way with the Lions defense. Also, Mike Tomlin said his relationship with quarterback Aaron Rodgers is a bromance. All right, that's good news here on the show. Buffalo Bills given the highest grade in the new uniform NFL report card. And in the NBA, Mikal Bridges got a contract extension with the New York Knicks. Falls under the radar because, again, so much happening in baseball and football. 4 years, $150 million gives the Knicks some flexibility. All right, coming up next, we're getting closer and closer to college football season. Usually August marks the beginning of us getting ready for it. So Bill Bender's all prepared to break down the big game between Texas and Ohio State at the end of the month. You're watching NewsWire on SportsGrid. We'll be right back.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune in to Game Time Decisions weekdays on SportsGrid.
The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that rim. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple of
18.5 point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. It's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Did you know sportsbooks tend to draw up tighter bet lines for events that get even more bettors, like championship games or major matchups? My tip? Try betting on less popular sports. You might have a better shot at beating those odds. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
Welcome to the month of August, which means college football season begins this month. Let's bring in Bill Bender from Sporting News to go over the very latest. And Bill, all the college football teams are back officially on the field, I guess in a wink, wink, nod, nod way. We know that they've been doing stuff behind the scenes, but they're getting ready now for the beginning of the season. Week 0, just a few weeks away, and then the huge showdowns, of course, coming week 1 in college football. Can't wait to get into it with you.
No, 3 weeks away from that Dublin game between Kansas State and Iowa State. I'm super excited. We've got a lot of content coming at Sporting News, and our preseason All-American team will be out next week. And I'll just give it right away right now. There are a lot of Texas and a lot of Ohio State guys on that team, and they play in week 1. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And it feels like the odds makers are telling us that it is a dead heat between these two teams for the number one team in the country, at least at the beginning of the season. We know things can go sideways at any time. But how about opening up between arguably the top two or top three teams in the country, with Ohio State at home taking on Texas, total 50 and a half. I mean, this is just as big as it gets to open up Labor Day weekend. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, the last time Texas was in Columbus was 20 years ago, and you ask anybody around here where they were, and they'll know. That was the game where Vince Young threw a late touchdown to Lima Swede. They won 25-22. Ohio State was really the only defense that held that Texas offense down that season. And, you know, the rules are reversed in a little bit. Everybody's looking forward to Arch Manning. I will say this about Texas the last 2 years, 25-5, 10-5 against ranked teams. They do have to rebuild the offensive line around Arch, but man, they've got playmakers. Whether it's Ryan Wingo or C.J. Baxter or Trey Wisner, they've got plenty of guys surrounding Arch that are going to make plays. So this Texas offense should be super exciting. The schedule's a little bit tougher. They do play at your Florida Gators, at Georgia, at Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
But man, there's a lot of talent rolling through Austin right now.
Yeah, and it could be somebody from that game ends up winning the Heisman Trophy Award. Although I don't think you could ever win or lose the Heisman in 1 week. That's unfair because it's just so early in the season, and we tend to be prisoners of the moment. But opening up, Arch Manning is going to be the favorite to win the Heisman this season, even if this changes before week one. I could see Cade Klubnik or Nussmeier jumping up maybe a little bit, but I think Arch is still going to be the favorite. But after week one, if Ohio State wins and Jeremiah Smith catches 3 touchdowns, I mean, Bill, that's going to flip.
Yeah, and we had a receiver, Devontae Smith, win it in 2020. Jeremiah Smith would have to have that kind of season where you're looking at 18 to 20 touchdowns, 1,500 yards, however many catches. Remember, he does have to share because they have a loaded receiving room with Carnell Tate, with Brandon Ennis. This is the same kind of thing that Jackson Smith and Jigba and Marvin Harrison Jr. ran into. Yeah, they're super good. And Jeremiah Smith, I'd make the argument right now, he's the best player in college football. But he has to make those big plays in the Texas game, in the Michigan game, in the Penn State game in order to win the Heisman Trophy. He is a good bet. If you don't like Arch, I mean, Craig, the hard part to me is picking an SEC quarterback. Is it Lenora Sellers? Is it Garrett Nussmeier? Is it DJ Lagway, even though he's got the injury right now? There are a lot of talented quarterbacks that could pop up in the SEC this year.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Sellers to win the Heisman this year, Bill. I think he's very much flying under the radar. I loved what I saw from him last year. Okay, so in terms of Texas, let's just hit them real quick with their win total, 9.5, among the top in all of college football this season. But the reason why, somebody would say, Bill, why is it not 10.5? Why is it not 10? I mean, the reason why, Bill, is because this crazy schedule that Texas has. I mean, in the SEC and out of conference, I don't know how you could put that number on them to make the college football playoff minus 310 to win the SEC plus 280. You like any of those?
Well, thinking logically, then you have to, with the 9.5, you have to say they're getting a split against Georgia and Ohio State. And they got to play at the road in both of those games. Georgia beat them twice last year. Ohio State beat them. So let's say they lose both of those games on the road. Do you think they're going to win the rest of them? They do play at Florida. They've got to play Oklahoma. They've got the rivalry game against Texas A&M. There aren't a lot of breaks for the Longhorns. That said, I think they're going to go at least 10-2. I do. And I think they'll have a chance to play for the SEC championship again. Whether or not you like Texas, which the media pool did, or Georgia, who I think actually Georgia's flying under the radar, believe it or not. I still think they have a super talented roster around Gunnar Stockton and that defense. And Kirby's been telling them all summer that nobody believes in him. He's the master of that. You know that. So I think there is some value in Georgia as well.
So if that noon game isn't enough for you, you can take a break during the day, I suppose, and skip some games, but you got to come back at night for this showdown between LSU and Clemson. That's a 7:30 p.m. Eastern game. We've already heard a little war of words about who's better and what field is better to play on and who's hot and who's not. Clemson, by the way, Bill, I will say, supposed to be better this year. I know the last couple of years have been shaky. Supposed to be a better season for them. They're 3.5-point favorites, total 57.5. Ton of pressure on LSU, I think, to stay in this game and win. But then again, if Clemson doesn't win, pressure's on them too for the rest of the year.
The line surprises me a little bit. I thought it might be around like 2.5 or 1.5. even though it's Clemson at home, and all of those things you said are true. They have 3 or 4 first-round picks, Peter Woods, TJ Parker on a loaded defensive line. I think they'll win the game, but I'm leery of the fact that they lost to 3 SEC schools last year. LSU does have a ton of talent around Garrett Nussmeier. They work the portal a lot, and there's more pressure, I think, on LSU, just because they haven't won an opener since 2019, and that was the national championship season. They've had some really visible season opening losses since. So for Clemson, I think it's a kind of put your foot in the ground, show who has the real Death Valley. By the way, if I'm a Clemson bookstore, I'm making a ton of Death Valley Junior t-shirts to wear to that game. And, I think it's going to be a lot of fun that night.
I do too. By the way, let's skip ahead, guys, to the win total for LSU. 8.5 I'm seeing here on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Plus 650 to win the SEC. Boy, the odds makers are certainly telling us that LSU, I mean, they could be good, but they're hedging their bets here a little bit. It feels like there's a chance that LSU may be not as good as they want to be this year.
They think they could get to 9 wins and their fan base not be happy. They're used to winning 9, 10 games. So this is a big year for Brian Kelly. They can't lose 4 games again.
Yeah, would agree. Bill, great to catch up with you. We'll see you next week as we get closer to week 0. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thank you.
Coming up next, SportsGrid Sound Off. We'll go around the National Football League. Brian Dable, coaches in the NFL, getting ready for the first preseason games, which begin for everybody else next week. You're watching NewsWire on SportsGrid. We'll take a quick time out. We'll be back with more right after these messages as we continue on here on this Friday afternoon.
They lay over and die at the hands of the Minnesota Lynx, who beat them 109-78. The defense is a mess. The offense is a mess. The Vegas Aces, who I was so sold on, JY, bouncing back and being one of the absolute best teams in this league, are average at best.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Want to hear a crazy stat, guys, with this Pittsburgh Pirate team? I brought this up yesterday. Out of 106 games, they have been involved in 27 shutouts, 13-4, 14 against. Over 1 out of every 4 Pittsburgh Pirate games ends in a shutout. How crazy is that?
Total is 8 tonight. In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
One big problem for NBC, too many on-air cooks for the coverage, particularly on the weekends. Having 4 on-air teams separate time, divide the time, was really outrageous. You had Mike Tirico and his partner. You had Dan Hicks, NBC Sports' lead golf commentator, and his partner. You had Steve Sampson, Golf Channel, and his partner. And you had Terry Gann, who, by the way, if you don't know, is going to become an NBA play-by-play voice.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Just more and more smoke, leading to the fire that is Keegan Bradley being on this team as a player.
Yeah, I think we're all expecting it at this point. And, Keegan, he knows he can't play poorly in the playoffs. Like, he knows he needs to keep momentum going. And if he continues to play well, he's going to be on this team.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. NFL training camps continuing on. The good news is we're going to be able to shut those down next week because the NFL preseason begins and teams are going to start to play against some other teams, as we saw last night. Let's get to the head coach of the New York Giants and the quarterbacks of the Commanders and Patriots in today's SportsGrid Sound Off. Pretty evident by now, by the way that they're using the quarterback rotation in New York, that the Giants are going to opt to choose Russell Wilson, most likely, or Jameis Winston before they go to Jackson Dart at quarterback. Now, Dart obviously is the quarterback of at least the future, you would believe, based on where they took him in the NFL draft. But the one thing that head coach Brian Daboll is trying to do is simulate as many live action games, even though Dart is unlikely to open up the season as the starter. Here's the explanation as to how they are developing Dart into QB1 while he currently is QB2 or 3.
Yeah, that period was unique in and of itself. We had a period scripted, 18 plays, and then I called the first team defense, first team offense up, coordinators, and then I told them to scrap that period, and the headsets were down on the field, and the players take control of it. So they call it, no help from the coaches, no play calls, see what they can retain down in the red zone, plays they like, put them in some different situations. So all the quarterbacks, the one he threw, it made a nice play. He called that play, and then he got down and was. I actually liked this thought process. He was trying to install a play almost on the 4-yard line there at the 4, something that he wanted to try, and it didn't work out so good.
Is that the one he didn't get it in? I mean, with the delay of game, or
Yeah. So he's explaining a few different things, and but that's good for quarterbacks to be able to do that, and signal callers. You never know what's going to happen in a game. Call gets put in late, something happens, you can't get the headsets are down. To be able to practice a situation like that could come up. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but at least we've practiced, we've talked about it, we've coached it, we've communicated through some things, and it's also good to get a feel for what these guys call when they get an opportunity to do that.
All right, now let's go over to the Washington Commanders. Boy, Jaden Daniels can't be happy to hear what's going on with his number one target in Terry McLaurin. But the good news for Daniels is that he's making the leap into year 2. Generally speaking, quarterbacks do better in their second year than their first, and Daniels was fantastic last year. Yesterday, after training camp, he talked about the progression heading into the second season.
I would just say more so playing the situation game-like, as game-like as possible. Like first and second downs, try not to take a sack. If it's not there, throw the ball away. Work on the second play. Never know. I might be lucky enough to break a sack one time and keep my eyes downfield and let those guys work. But other than that, always just trying to make it as game-like as possible.
And do you, just even in terms of a leadership role, how have you seen yourself evolve or change, do more of that?
Yeah, most definitely. I think it's a standard that we set on the offensive side and I'm the one that's got to uphold the standard. And that's if guys are false starting, the next guy up, stuff like that. And even for me, it's like holding myself accountable. If I mess up, I'll look to Zach. I'll look to guys like that to hold me accountable too. But I mean, that's just holding leadership-wise, like not letting nobody fall underneath the standard.
I think the standard is set for the New England Patriots. Let's get to their new quarterback, Drake May, who's also getting ready to make a big jump in year 2.
Yeah, I think just keep going. I think just keep working, keep building chemistry. There's throws that I wish I had back, missed some touchdowns. 2 practices ago in the red zone. That's what you're out here for. I think I hurt myself on trying to make those throws and make the easy ones, but that's what it's out here. Timing and the guys up front are battling their butts off. It's a little better against the defense. We were able to run the football on them a little bit, and they're not just playing the pass. So I think we're coming together, gelling nicely, and I think just keep on. We've got a good look with our defense. They got some good players over there, so we're getting some great work, and we just got to keep building into joint practices and keep it going.
Do you feel an upward? You're not supposed to. You go ahead, Dougie. Do you feel an upward progression for yourself right now?
I mean, that's what you hope. I think I'm trying to get comfortable in this offense, kind of take the next steps as we go, and I think the real test will be when the games comes and when we get in these joint practices. So I'm looking forward. I'm proud of work we've done, and I feel good. I feel in a good spot, but I think it's still a lot of work left.
Coming up next, Pat Evans joins us from Legal Sports Report. Got an updated story on potential sports betting changes in the city of Chicago. Speaking of which, Major League Baseball announced today that the 2027 All-Star Game is headed back to Wrigley Field. Pat Evans joins us next to talk about everything going on in sports betting, courtesy of Legal Sports Report. Up next.
just more and more smoke, leading to the fire that is Keegan Bradley being on this team as a player.
Yeah, I think we're all expecting it at this point. And, Keegan, he knows he can't play poorly in the playoffs. Like, he knows he needs to keep momentum going. And if he continues to play well, he's going to be on this team.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Christopher Sanchez of the Philadelphia Phillies is one of 3 Major League Baseball pitchers to have a 7-start span featuring an undefeated record, a sub-1.5 ERA, 50 or more innings pitched, 50 or more strikeouts, fewer than 5 walks, no more than 1 home run allowed.
Fantasy sports today, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that roof. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple of
18.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. It's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
One big problem for NBC, too many on-air cooks for the coverage, particularly on the weekends. Having 4 on-air teams separate time, divide the time, was really outrageous. You had Mike Tirico and his partner. You had Dan Hicks, NBC Sports' lead golf commentator, and his partner. You had Steve Sands from Golf Channel and his partner. And you had Terry Gann, who, by the way, if you don't know, is going to become an NBA play-by-play voice.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
We're joined by Pat Evans of Legal Sports Report. Pat's got a new gig, by the way, we'll be talking to you about next week here on the show. And, of course, still going to make appearances for us and discuss the world of sports betting. But for now, let's say Pat Evans of Legal Sports Report. By the way, everything cool with Pat. No drama or anything else like, some like Micah Parsons or Terry McLaurin. And that's all not happening. Very amicable. Pat, welcome back to the show. I know you love Fridays, so we got some hot topics here to talk about. Let's start off in Chicago. We're seeing this flat sports betting fee and percentages being added all across the country, a quarter, 50 cents. Just depends on who you ask and the way things go in legislation. Things can change at any time. So is Chicago now going like a different direction as to what we thought previously?
I mean, we'll have to wait and see, but this is just potentially more bad news for sports books in Illinois. I mean, if you've been following this and listening to this show when we're on from LSR, I mean, yeah, 2 years ago, or I guess it was last year, the Illinois government went from a 15% flat rate sports betting tax to a tiered system from 20 to 40% based on how much revenue those sports books are doing. Well, on top of that, this year, the budget included a new thing where you bet for the first 20 million bets from a sports book, you get a 25-cent per bet tax for the sports books. Well, that jumps to 50 cents per bet when you go over those 20 million bets. So that's in itself, the sports books are pretty upset. We've seen 6 now. Bet Rivers just announced a $1 minimum bet on top of Hard Rock is $2, BetMGM's $2.50 minimum bets. And then, of course, FanDuel, DraftKings, and Fanatics all have a per bet fee that's included in their sports book bets now. Like, you just can't place a bet without paying that extra bet. Well, now you've got the Chicago City Council saying, hey, that's not a bad idea. Maybe we can institute a 50-cent per bet tax. It's nothing officially proposed or anything like that. It was just floated as something they've looked at. Based on their estimations, they could make up to $40 to $41 million a year in this per bet tax. But you really have to wonder, based on the action these sports books have already undergone to kind of mitigate the effect of this new per bet tax fee that just went into effect July 1st, how much another 50 cents from just a city could play into what they might do and how they offer things to customers. So this is just something to keep an eye on. Again, nothing official from the Chicago City Council, but it's being floated. And when people start seeing more tax dollars, you have to wonder, what happens in the long run. Of note, Chicago does have a per bet or a tax included in-person bets, which of course is only at Wrigley Field right now at a DraftKings, and they haven't made a ton of money, only that's something, $20,000-$40,000 or whatever it is. So not huge, but they are looking at it and saying we want to get ours somehow from this industry.
All right, now let's move on to a story that we'll follow up on with you. We had Sam McQuillan on earlier this week, Pat. He said that, maybe some progress being made in the state of Georgia in a year that we're making virtually no progress in sports betting. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Missouri is the only city or state this year that's going to legalize sports betting and have it go online. That will happen in December. Other than that, we're not going to get any other state legalized. Is Georgia a possibility for 2026, Pat?
I think we're getting there. I think this is something, as long as I've been coming on this show for 4 years almost now, we're looking at Georgia. Georgia's one of those states that we're always, the chances are pretty good because there are efforts. And every year there's multiple bills introduced to legalize sports betting. But there's different opinions from the legislators how they want to get it done. Some say, not want, a constitutional amendment is necessary to pass that, and that includes a vote by the voters at the ballot box. But then others say, well, no, we can just legalize it under the lottery, and it's fine, and just simple as that. So there's that different opinion, and they clash. And then, of course, as we always talk about in the Southeast, there's quite a bit of pushback from the religious right who say, gambling is immoral, and we don't want to legalize that at all. And so you have that going on. But of course, the last couple of years, we've seen efforts get nearly to the finish line and then stall out because of these differences. Well, now we finally have a House study committee that started meeting this week and will continue to meet until they make recommendations in December of, hey, what do we need to do gambling in Georgia? The first meeting was largely based about casino gambling, so didn't really touch on sports betting. That'll be touched on in the coming months, and as will pari-mutuel horse racing betting options. So we'll get, come December, some recommendations from legislators on how they think it's best to do it and how we go forward. There was a bill that is still alive from this last session that will get picked up in January or February, whenever they come back to the session. And we'll see what happens. That would go through the constitutional amendment process, which would include a vote in November 2026. So not doing it this year doesn't set it back very much at all, if any, based on what the timeline could be. So if that does happen, you'd see a 2027 launch. So we'll see if that goes ahead. But yeah, slow progress in Georgia, but I think this is more progress maybe than ever, because now we can finally see lawmakers come together, say, hey, this is what we like, what we don't like, why we disagree. Can we come to a nice agreement? And rather than do it kind of off session and in a calmer setting, maybe, than trying to shove things all through the legislative process when you're trying to get things done before adjourning. So yeah, a little bit of progress I think we're seeing in Georgia here.
Let's end with a discussion that I think is going to be a hot topic in the future, especially with what's gone on in college sports and now, of course, Pat, in Major League Baseball. That is prop bets. And it seems like state by state and more legislatures are basically asking the question, why? Why, with all of the betting options, why do we need to have prop bets? And look, as somebody that personally would love to give all sports betting, fans and people who like to bet options, the groundswell is coming here. I mean, if anything happens with the Cleveland Guardians story, Pat, I think you're going to see the elimination of betting on pitches.
Yeah, this is, of course, I think this is directly related to the Guardians situation, where, of course, 2 pitchers have been placed on leave, at least one of them for suspicious pitching activities that integrity monitors have targeted and said, hey, this is a little weird, let's check this out. Governor Mike DeWine came out and said, let's end prop betting. This isn't good. And of course, this isn't the first issue we've seen. As you mentioned, it's been happening across the country, but we've had in Ohio, some Dayton Flyer basketball players were targeted by bettors who were upset about prop bets. And so back in 2023, we saw the lead regulator there in Ohio say, we can't do this, we should get rid of these. Of course, that hasn't happened yet, but now you got the governor saying the same thing based on this Guardian situation. And yeah, you have to wonder what's going to happen, because to your point, people are familiar with these now. People expect these offerings. They want to do this. They're, it's not a brand new thing. So maybe they then look offshore and say, let's go back there. So it's going to be a very tricky thing to figure out moving forward. Of course, in New Jersey, we have a new bill that is eliminating in-game wagering because of the impulsiveness that they say it encourages from bettors. Kind of the same situation here, and it is a little bit riskier than maybe some just straight bets on games and such when you get down to integrity monitoring issues. So yeah, to your point, it just adds to the growing headwinds against the online gambling industry that we've seen, and whether that's the advertising framework that we've seen proposed at a national level or just the state level regulators saying, okay, we need to figure out what kind of bets are good for bettors and what kind put people and athletes at a bigger risk. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Governor Mike DeWine said no more prop bets in Ohio, or he doesn't want them. Of course, they still are allowed for the time being, but that's what he's asking for.
Yeah, and honestly, especially focusing on Emmanuel Clase here for a minute, we don't know exactly what happened, and it's possible that nothing has happened, and these are just an investigation. But Pat, if Clase is found to have any wrongdoing, to me, Pat, this is the biggest game changer because yes, we've seen it a little bit in the NBA, but Class A makes a lot of money relative to us.
He does,
to the
and
world.
he's a big name. So
yeah, and if he is found to have any improprieties, it would honestly at that point means even if you're making millions of dollars and you're still willing to stupidly bet on yourself or on sports, there could be time for a change. Good to see you, Pat. We'll see you back Monday.
Yeah, bye, Craig.
Just more and more smoke, leading to the fire that is Keegan Bradley being on this team as a player.
Yeah, I think we're all expecting it at this point. And, Keegan, he knows he can't play poorly in the playoffs. Like, he knows he needs to keep momentum going. And if he continues to play well, he's going to be on this team.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Christopher Sanchez of the Philadelphia Phillies is one of 3 Major League Baseball pitchers to have a 7-start span featuring an undefeated record, a sub-1.5 ERA, 50 or more innings pitched, 50 or more strikeouts, fewer than 5 walks, no more than 1 home run allowed.
Fantasy sports today, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
Rearranging that roof. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple 15.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. It's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
One big problem for NBC, too many on-air cooks for the coverage, particularly on the weekends. Having 4 on-air teams separate time, divide the time, was really outrageous. You had Mike Tirico and his partner. You had Dan Hicks, NBC Sports' lead golf commentator, and his partner. You had Steve Sands from Golf Channel and his partner. And you had Terry Gann, who, by the way, if you don't know, is going to become an NBA play-by-play voice.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Let's get to the very latest on the National Football League. The Baltimore Ravens open up training camp and then preseason next week. Great to have Melissa Kim here on the show to break it all down for us. You can hear, of course, on the radio, on the Fan in Baltimore, and it's great to have you back. It's been a long time. Thanks for checking in.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's football season, right? We're getting amped up and ready to go. So it's been off season always feels so long. But I know it's the same amount of time every year, but it always just feels so long before we get to football season and training camp. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's great to see you again. And, look, every year I feel like when we talk about the Ravens, it's sort of Super Bowl or bust, but it is kind of getting to that point where at some point it's got to happen. Is this the year that you think that potentially it happens? It feels like the regular season can be sleptwalked at this point for the Ravens, because if they don't win several playoff games and at least get to the end, I feel like people are going to look at this as a failure.
I mean, you're absolutely right about that, Craig. I'm going every year with such cautious optimism, right? Watching this team now, entering my fifth season watching this team, and for their sixth season watching this team, rather. And look, every year we come in saying exactly what you said, Super Bowl or bust, right? Especially with how Lamar Jackson has developed throughout his career. He's only gotten better, and I think he's matured as well as a quarterback in terms of how he manages the game. And then you look at some of the weapons that he's been surrounded by. For me personally, the year for me was when they had that historically incredible defense when Odell Beckham Jr. was on the offense. That was such a big year for me. And as we keep on going, as we continue throughout the seasons, that's the year I always look back and I'm kind of like, like what could have been, what should have been, what might have been had the offense just had been a little bit better in that AFC Championship game against the Chiefs. Because that defense, they're never gonna. I don't know if they're ever gonna be able to replicate that. But having said all that, last year was kind of the opposite, right? The offense was making historic plays, like setting records, and then the defense was the one that was still in the learning phases a little bit. Obviously, having a lot of new personnel, obviously new defensive coordinator Zach Orr, who now has some experience under his belt. And this year we see DeAndre Hopkins on the field as well, who has a history of being able to get comfortable with quarterbacks early on. And we've definitely seen that between him and Lamar Jackson. So there are a lot of factors at play, but you're certainly not wrong about that for the Ravens, for the team themselves, and especially for the fans too. It's got to be a Super Bowl. I mean, it's been looming, I think, for the last 5 years of what this team could be. And we look at the end of every season like they're just this close.
And really, they have the talent to do it. They added DeAndre Hopkins, and certainly that's a big add for them if he can get back to what he was a few years ago. Zay Flowers is back once again after the great year that he had. Rashad Bateman was a touchdown machine. So I think let's start there because we know who's going to run the ball. But do you think it's the same group of pass catchers this year?
I think yes, but also let's expand on some of the guys they have. One guy I really have loved since he came to the Ravens, not really spoken about a lot, is tight end Charlie Kolar. So he came in from Iowa State. He's an extremely cerebral guy. And the times that you talk to him, I mean, we had like a 20-minute conversation once, one-on-one. I think about like for 7 minutes of it, he talked about his favorite condiment and like literally went in depth of like every single one of what he likes. So he's there's a lot going on upstairs for him. And when he makes mistakes, he knows automatically right away. He'll be like, well, I ran the wrong route there. That was my bad. And so I think that he is someone that size-wise too is a very large human being, has been great in blocking in the last couple of years. But I think that we could maybe see him emerge quite a bit more this year. I know he has great chemistry with all the guys on the team. He's someone I'm keeping an eye on. And obviously you mentioned the usual suspects, of course, Zay Flowers, who has the quickest feet I've ever seen. Rashad Bateman, couldn't be more happy for him and what he's been able to do because, he had been injury ridden for the last couple of seasons and finally was able to have a breakout year. So definitely, I think a couple of the usual suspects that will add to, I think, what DeAndre Hopkins could possibly bring to this team.
Now, Isaiah Likely, that's a big injury, of course. And, certainly they're going to put the best outlook on this. It says maybe 4 to 6 weeks. That could really put him out for the beginning of the season. And Melissa, sometimes we hear these things that he could be back for week 1. Teams do tend to go on the side of caution. And I'm not saying that he's going to be put on that physically unable to perform list, but Kolar could be one of those guys that may have to step up in his absence.
Yeah, I'm excited, honestly, for the possibility of Charlie Kolar because he is like I don't know if it's really noticeable to people from the outside the organization or outside this beat reporting team, but he really is fun. He's fun to watch. He's a fun guy on the sideline. He's fun to talk to. I hope he kind of brings some of that joy into his game. And also, like, we can't forget Mark Andrews, obviously, too. The OG of the OGs in that tight end room and still arguably Lamar Jackson's favorite target. And I know he's gotten a lot of flack in the last couple of months, especially given the way that last season ended for him, but he's come to terms with it. He has obviously worked through a lot mentally and emotionally to get over that. And so I think he's still going to be a reliable figure for Lamar Jackson to throw the ball to.
Now, what about kicking here? It's a new era for the Ravens because, Justin Tucker, with all of the issues, both on and off the field last year, has been shown the door, so to speak. What do you think happens with Baltimore's kicking game this year?
Listen, I think that it is indeed a new era. I mean, Justin Tucker has obviously been a figure in this organization and in Baltimore for so long, but they purposely went out and drafted, got some other guys. Tyler Loop, I think, has been pretty solid for the most part in what we've seen from him. So I think that this is an opportunity, right? I think for him to make a name for himself, for any of some of these other younger guys that they have, to be able to. Obviously, you can't replicate what someone like Justin Tucker has done on the field, but I think it's an opportunity for them to find somebody new, for someone to come and make a name for themselves. And I think Tyler Loop is on his way.
Finally, Melissa, in the end, do you think that this potentially is the season that the Ravens do get over the hump here? I mean, it is Kansas City, it is Buffalo, and it is Baltimore, and it feels like is it more the Ravens stepping up, or is it more of Kansas City taking a step back?
I think it's more of the Ravens stepping up. I mean, those three teams that you just mentioned there, those three are the ones to beat, right, in the AFC side. So obviously, Kansas City has had their turn. Buffalo's had their turn. It better be Baltimore's turn this year. But no, I think the Ravens, they've had, like you mentioned, like we've been talking about, they have the talent, they've got the goods. Every year, something just seems to happen where they beat themselves. It's not necessarily that the other team is better. I think that they've kind of had some issues in that sense. So I think that as long as they can just be themselves, play their game, stick to what they're good at, and not stray away from the plan, they'll be okay.
Thanks, Melissa, for coming on.
Can you handle the heat? If you don't mind the desert at the hottest, consider visiting Vegas in the summer, where the temperatures are high and the prices are low. Have fun! See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
Christopher Sanchez of the Philadelphia Phillies is one of 3 Major League Baseball pitchers to have a 7-start span featuring an undefeated record, a sub-1.5 ERA, 50 or more innings pitched, 50 or more strikeouts, fewer than 5 walks, no more than 1 home run allowed.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Luka Doncic lands the cover of Men's Health magazine. Let me say that again. Luka Doncic lands the cover of Men's Health magazine. I mean, that's noteworthy, because Luka Doncic was seemingly traded away from Dallas because the Mavericks weren't sure if he was ever going to get in shape enough to deliver on his full potential.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
I like Payton. I like Jeremy Payton. I think he's a nice player, but really, look at this offense. You're shocked that they win games 2-1. I mean, they're an under machine. Solid pitching, even though Hector Staff's on the injured list still. The bullpen's solid, and they can't hit a lick. They average what? It seems like they average 3 runs a game. But somehow they run off 10 in a row. They're 10 games under, and then they're 20 games over 500. How does this team do it? That's just in them, though.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. It's time for the United Football League to take a big step up. It could be virtual, I think a certainty if Mike Rapoli is involved. And right now he says that he is all in. He's part owner now of the UFL. He's co-founded Vitamin Water, Smart Water, and Body Armor before selling them to Coca-Cola for more than $12 billion. And now he's ready to turn around the United Football League. He was on with our friends over at Front Office Sports. And here's a look how he plans on getting it done.
I think today is really the first day of the United Football League. And Probably took a couple of years for them to get comfortable and have the right conferences and leagues. And, I think they learned a lot. And I think that hopefully my team, Impact Capital, and I, being on the business side and helping out the sales and marketing can add tremendous value. We're very excited about the opportunity.
Now, looking at your business accolades and accomplishments, Mike, from Vitamin Water, Body Armor, Noble, your horse racing as well with Rapoli Stables, even your work with St. John's, you've been a visionary involved in really changing the status quo. So in joining the ownership group for the UFL, I'm curious, what are your hopes and goals in terms of the next phase of growth for the league?
I mean, Renee, when you shout out the brands and the teams that you just named, this one might be the easiest thing I've ever done. I mean, look at the partners in the league. Football right now is in a league of its own. I mean, football is king. Football is the number one sport. College football is the number 2 sport. When you look at the top 100 sports programs every year, the NFL and college football probably have 85 or 90 of the top 100. So people in this country love football. And I think if you can bring them a great product in the right city and the right venue, I think it's going to be really, really big. We're not looking to compete with the NFL. In fact, we're complimenting the NFL and we're riding off their momentum. And I mean, the one thing I think people really love about football, I mean, everybody has such a crazy, hectic lifestyle. I mean, I don't know if you're a baseball fan. I don't know how you watch 162 games. How do you watch 82 NBA games? I mean, NFL has 17 regular season games, college football 12. And the UFL's, 10. So you can follow your team on a weekly basis, and football is just great right now.
Well, look, you mentioned the UFL as a challenger league. I mean, it has definitely had its struggles as sort of one of those challenger leagues. I mean, when you're pitting against the NFL, obviously it's incredibly difficult. But do you view this almost as a rescue mission, or what you're trying to do to sort of help the UFL sort of like get up onto the next level here?
Yeah, Baker, I think that there's a couple things right now. In past attempts with spring football, you haven't had, Fox and ESPN, Danny Garcia, Dwayne Johnson, Redbird Capital, and now Mike Rapoli and Impact Capital. I mean, we have the finances, we have the capital, we have the marketing, we have the sales, we have the sports, investment experience that Redbird Capital has. I mean, look at what Danny Garcia and The Rock have done. To me, this is the team that can do this. And I really think that we are a small piece of that puzzle. But with my team working with the UFL senior business team, I think, running the sales and marketing, the viewership, the venues, the cities we're going to choose, ticketing, pricing, sponsorships, merchandise, we want to bring fun to football in the spring, and we're excited about this, and I really believe this is going to be really, really big, and I'm excited about today's announcement.
Mike Rapoli taking over, and a big part of the United Football League certainly is good news for their future. Also good news around Major League Baseball. Several trades yesterday that could potentially affect the postseason. Maybe the biggest impacts made by the San Diego Padres is, of course, they get Mason Miller in a monster deal to acquire him, where he'll either pitch the 8th or the 9th inning. We'll see. They also get Ryan O'Hearn and Ramon Laureano from the Orioles. The Texas Rangers traded for Diamondback starter Merrill Kelly, and the Yankees end up getting Camilo Doval, David Bednar, and also get another reliever as well in Jake Bird. So lots of trades happening there. Needless to say, it's very clear at this point that a lot of the trades that were made by the Minnesota Twins point toward them not competing this year. Willie Castro sent to the Cubs, Adrian Hauser sent to the Rays, and maybe a big surprise in LA where the Dodgers end up sending Dustin May to the Boston Red Sox. We'll take a quick time out here on NewsWire, and when we come back, we talk more about the world of sports and sports wagering here on SportsGrid. 30 more minutes to go. I hope you can stay with us. We'll be back right after this. Don't go away.
Can you handle the heat? If you don't mind the desert at the hottest, consider visiting Vegas in the summer, where the temperatures are high and the prices are low. Have fun! See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
Christopher Sanchez of the Philadelphia Phillies is one of 3 Major League Baseball pitchers to have a 7-start span featuring an undefeated record, a sub-1.5 ERA, 50 or more innings pitched, 50 or more strikeouts, fewer than 5 walks, no more than 1 home run allowed.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Luka Doncic lands the cover of Men's Health magazine. Let me say that again. Luka Doncic lands the cover of Men's Health magazine. I mean, that's noteworthy because Luka Doncic was seemingly traded away from Dallas because the Mavericks weren't sure if he was ever going to get in shape enough to deliver on his full potential.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
I like Payton. I like Jeremy Payton. I think he's a nice player, but really, look at this offense. You're shocked that they win games 2-1. I mean, they're an under machine. Solid pitching, even though half their staff's on the injured list still. The bullpen's solid, and they can't hit a lick. They average what? It seems like they average 3 runs a game. But somehow they run off 10 in a row. They're 10 games under, and then they're 20 games over 500. How does this team do it? That's just in them, though.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Joe Raineri is with us of the early line to break down the latest in Major League Baseball and all the trades that associate with it. Joe's all excited. His Yankees are in South Florida this weekend. Joe, are you going to make it? I mean, I know the answer to this. The answer is no. We can't get Joe to go south of Palm Beach County anymore, I don't think. But the Yankees and Marlins, Joe, 3 games this weekend at Lone Depot Park.
Listen, tickets are hard to come by there, Craig. Make of it what you will, but I will say this: the Yankees will make me drive south, my friend. That's exactly what will happen here. The new look New York Yankees, in fact, who have decided that maybe that bullpen that they had isn't a championship bullpen moving forward. So you got to be excited for both New York teams after the trade deadline yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, tickets are hard to come by, but you may know somebody that could help you with that. I don't know. Didn't hear from that.
I may.
You never contacted that person. You never contacted that person. Could have been. All right. So, I know that our producer, Frank, and probably you as well, were not a big fan of this, seeing Carlos Correa go back to the Houston Astros. Probably the most intriguing move of the deadline, where Correa himself was very honest in alluding to the fact that he would only go back to Houston, and also said that he understands that he's not a shortstop anymore and he needed to go to third base. You rarely see that from an athlete who is clearly on the back 9 of his career, but can he help the Astros and can he push them back to where they want to be? I know it could be a temporary solution for what they want to do. Bregman is gone. Pacheco is hurt. Can Correa be the help for Houston?
Well, listen, if I'm Correa and I'm looking around that Twins locker room after the complete fire sale that they were going through yesterday, I would admit I couldn't play shortstop, and I'd be willing to go just to play about any position because the Twins were not having it. But you know this, Craig. He lives there in the offseason still, has a house there. He's very familiar with the area. It's a homecoming of many sorts. And yes, he is not the player full of potential that he once was when he was with the Astros. But, that kind of comfort level and the history of that organization, Houston likes to win. They know how to win. This isn't about making the playoffs for them. You got to think this could be the fire under his what in order to be able to maybe push them over the top.
Yeah, and not only that, but Joe, Houston was very active. They get Ramon Urias, who can play the infield as well. They also get Jesus Sanchez from the Miami Marlins, and of course, against right-handed pitching, he's going to help a lot. Does it change your view on the Astros at all with the moves that they've made, or they still fall behind perhaps New York and Detroit for you?
Well, listen, kudos to both Houston and the Padres who managed to figure out ways to get their teams to be better despite having absolutely little to no financial wiggle room there, but yet they managed to work this thing out and not have to mortgage the farm here. Listen, that is the most competitive division outside of the American League East, I think, that we're going to have here. Detroit, thanks to a ridiculous first half, has kind of set themselves up where they're not really in jeopardy of losing the Central, but Houston's going to have some work to do. Seattle's better. Texas is finally putting it together. They get Merrill Kelly yesterday. That's a pretty good 1-2-3 punch there in the rotation for the Rangers. So, yeah, I give Houston the edge, but I think that division is far from being just handed to the Astros at this point.
Okay, I think that's fair. Also, the Minnesota Twins, as you mentioned, not going to win a World Series, Joe, this year. I think it's fair to say. Is this one of the bigger fire sales we've seen from this team? I mean, Minnesota wasn't that far out of it. I don't think that they were going to make the postseason, but they traded a dozen players, including Correa and Willie Castro, who's been really good for them. I think the issue, more or less, Joe, is that they lost Pablo Lopez for a period of time, and all of these players that they plugged in on offense just haven't worked. The Twins can't score runs.
Listen, kudos to the Twins organization for picking a lane there, Craig, and sticking with it. Like, okay, I knew we're well aware that this just isn't going to work. We've got a ton of financial liability with some of these contracts. Now is the time in order to say, you know what, let's light a match and start from scratch here. And kudos to them, because there were some other teams yesterday where I have no idea what you're doing. I have no idea what Tampa is doing here. I have there are some head scratching non-moves as well as moves that some of these teams made, like pick a lane and go all in with it. But, the Twins, they did that. We'll see what they look like over the next couple of years.
Now, you talked about the Yankees here a little bit. It felt like going for some of the bigger names was just impossible with the prospects they would have had to be given up. But the Yankees followed suit in ways that a lot of other teams did. Very similar, by the way, Joe, to the New York Mets, which is let's just get guys that if we can't find starters, they can pitch the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, and the 9th. So they get David Bednar, who's had a lot of success as closer, especially this year. I know he faltered last year, but he's been fantastic. Camilo Doval from the Giants, who punted their season, Jake Bird, and then they get an infielder in Jose Caballero, who certainly is very fast and can play defense. And Joe, the Yankees defense has really taken a step back.
And this feels like a dramatically different team than it does from a front office perspective and attitude than what we have got maybe over the last couple of years, because maybe the most impressive thing about what Cashman and the Yankees have done with these relievers is all of those guys, Craig, are under contract for more than a couple of years. I mean, they will have control of these guys moving forward for the next couple of seasons, whereas Devin Williams, I mean, at what point do we just go, this did not work? He's not the same pitcher he was in Milwaukee. And, oh, yeah, by the way, you're either going to have to sign him to another ridiculous deal or he's going to go someplace else in free agency. So you got to love what the Yankees did, not only with the bullpen, but also over the next couple of years, recognizing we control these guys, including McMahon, by the way, at a pretty good price here over the next couple of years.
But what happened, Joe, is the odds makers think the Yankees didn't do enough because they made the Blue Jays a bigger favorite after the trade deadline on FanDuel this morning. They're up to -140, and the Yankees are back to +150. And so that kind of tells the story here, is I think that most of the odds makers feel the Yankees are a postseason team, but they're not a division-winning team. Do you feel that way too?
No, well, listen, they put an awful lot of eggs in the Shane Bieber basket here, Toronto, hoping that a guy that hasn't pitched since, April of 2024, maybe May, like over a year ago, that has had Tommy John surgery. Yeah, you're hoping you're just going to plant him in there and that's going to be a good enough starting rotation in order to compete. I don't think so. I think the Yankees and that bullpen move, and what we're hearing from about Judge is that he's taking batting practice again, and maybe this 10-day IL trip is just that. It's a little vacation for him to get a little bit healthier And the Yankees, I think, are very much alive and to be able to take that division, which they were the favorites to start with in the beginning of the season. I don't see why that should change now.
Now, the Red Sox are another perplexing team, Joe, because they were crushed for trading Rafael Devers, okay, to the Giants at the deadline. No one now, Joe, is looking back saying the Red Sox won that. The Giants have been the worst team in baseball since. They traded their players too. And so now they're getting crushed for not doing enough at the deadline here. They get Steven Matz, they get Dustin May. I mean, I got to tell you, like, I'm not going to crush the Red Sox. It feels like, yes, they did not do enough and they didn't push down hard enough. But it's just so funny how it seems like that. I mean, I hate to say it. It seems like that Devers trade may have been the best for them if they used the money that Devers was making to sign somebody next year.
And I think that's the key to it, Greg. I think the Red Sox view this as an opportunity to get some of these younger guys in the organization, some experience, bring them along. It's already a winning season as far as I'm concerned for the Red Sox by getting rid of the cancer out of the locker room, unloading that contract, and giving your young guys a chance to shine. And then we can talk about the Red Sox moving forward as a legit contender, not this year.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, interesting stuff, Joe. We'll bring back Joe Raineri to wrap up our show next, so don't go away.
I have to think long and hard about whether or not you're a Hall of Famer, you're not a Hall of Famer. I don't need to argue stats. I don't need to argue whether or not you are great. If Ichiro Suzuki is not a Hall of Famer, we don't need to have a baseball Hall of Fame. Like, just pack it up and shut it down, because that guy was as good of a hitter as we've ever seen. And he was unbelievable from the first time he stepped onto the field for the Mariners until the end.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
It's edge rushers. That's where it is right now. And I think Myles Garrett is in a class of his own. I think TJ Watt's right there. I think Micah Parsons is right there. Certainly, those guys are very, very good. Myles Garrett is in a class of his own. He just absolutely is. When the advanced stats about the double team rate, his quarterback pressure rate, all of that, he just stands a notch. I don't want to say a big gap, but he stands a notch ahead of those guys.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
He'll be your reserve, your extra guy here. Listen, we all need that. I say this all the time about outfielders. Most leagues, I don't know about your league, but we start 5 outfielders. Even if you're in a 10-team league, that's 50 outfielders. Plus you got some guys at utility. Plus you got some guys on reserve. 70 outfielders are gone. All right, so outfielders are extremely valuable here. And Moniak, if he's available, is a nice guy to pick up right now.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
I feel they're all completely justified. The numbers, they're nearly identical. And speaking of identical, I don't know if you saw that one, Craig. That was pretty wild. From winning their first major to winning their 4th major, both Tiger Woods and Scottie Scheffler completed that task in exactly 1,197 days. Both of them, in the exact amount of days, won their 4th major.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
So the baseball season's final 2 months open up back tonight. We got Joe Raineri here joining us to break down some of the matchups this evening, as Joe is taking an early look before he catches the Marlins and Yankees Friday night. By the way, Joe, the Saturday and Sunday sold out, so just heads up in advance on those games. But Tigers, Phillies, let's start there. World Series preview, potentially, if they could get past LA. Jack Flaherty starts tonight for Detroit. For Philadelphia, it's Ranger Suarez. So both teams added a little. I feel like the Phillies added the bigger piece maybe between these two teams. And so do you buy that little extra juice when Duran, as an example, joins the Phillies clubhouse tonight? They're minus 152 total, 7.5 tonight.
I do like a lot of these teams that maybe get a little shot in the arm for this final stretch run of the regular season. The Phillies included. We saw, Seattle play some inspired baseball last night in a shutout over the Rangers. I think we get the same thing here. I mean, the Tigers, congrats. You were an absolute hot mess in July, and then you ran into the Diamondbacks to end the month. And I can promise you, the Diamondbacks are not what the Phillies are right now. Plus, there's something with Jack Flaherty. Atrocious on the road, better at home, but he's kind of gotten worse as the season has progressed here. I like Ranger Suarez. I like the bats. I do not trust this Detroit team at all. Phillies for me in this one.
All right, Giants tonight are on the road at the New York Mets. You can see the better pitcher pitches for the Giants, but the odds makers are telling us the Giants gave away too much to be competitive the rest of the season. They traded Duvall, they traded Yastrzemski, they traded their reliever Rogers. I mean, it's not a complete teardown, but it is a little bit of a shell of what they were. And you talk about clubhouse attitude, Giants can't be feeling great about it. Mets did get Mullins, a couple of other pieces as well, and Helsley. They're minus 135 tonight, total 7.5. David Peterson has been fantastic for the Mets. Robbie Ray, Joe, look, if he has his best game, Giants are winning tonight, 1-0, 2-0. That's the dynamic here.
And that's kind of exactly what I'm looking at, Craig. I think it's an under for me here. I still, obviously, the Giants haven't fixed their offensive woes. Peterson has been pretty good. Giants still one of the bottom 5 teams against lefties here this season. They're not a good offensive team. I like Robbie Ray. I think he can hold the Mets in check here. And the bullpen, well, I got rid of Dotel for a reason. I don't know how much they trusted him, but it does appear to me that I don't expect a ton of runs at Citi Field. I like the pitching matchup. I'll go with the under.
All right, so let's now take an updated look at the National League West. Both the Giants and Diamondbacks have punted away their season, and the Rockies punted that away on opening day. So the only thing here would be is if the Padres could potentially catch the Dodgers. What's really interesting, Joe, about this is that LA has a 3-game lead and they're minus 1,300. Now, I think you and I both feel the Dodgers are going to win this, yes. But as far as the odds go, it doesn't really represent maybe what it should. I mean, can San Diego catch LA? If so, it's plus 800.
Well, anything is possible. Reinforcements, still they're hoping to get Snell back for the Dodgers. That starting rotation seems to be the best is yet to come. The bullpen is still a little bit, iffy as far as the bullpen goes with the Dodgers. But let's face it, that lineup, that experience. We have this same conversation, it feels like, over the last couple of years, right around this time about the Padres. Can they do it? Will they do it? Pella doesn't have a problem spending money and making the necessary moves, but it's about execution. And it's about execution, by the way, at the end of this month into September. Can they do enough to be able to overtake the Dodgers? I have my doubts.
And the Padres are plus 800 with the additions of Mason Miller, J.P. Sears, whose numbers should be better in San Diego than they were with the A's in Sacramento. Ryan O'Hearn, nice addition there. Ramon Laureano, I don't know. I mean, he hasn't been in the league for like 3 years, Joe, and now he's back. He had a good year. I want to give him that. I mean, Joe, it feels like the Padres are always doing this and then not winning anything, right? Like, Juan Soto, it doesn't matter who they get. I give the GM credit, but isn't somebody going to have to pay the bill on this eventually? They just keep ordering food and they never pay.
Again, he did exactly what he needed to do to address some of the glaring issues here. I thought Suarez would be gone the minute that they traded for Miller, since he's a free agent at the end of the year. He's got Miller under control for another couple of years. He added a couple of really good bats. But you're right. There's nothing else you can do. Michael King is coming back here. Darvish seems to be getting better as he continues to pitch. There's nothing not to like about this Padres team except the history of them underperforming when it matters the most.
Definitely so. All right, Joe. So we head into a weekend of baseball, of course, but you and I both know that football rules the world. We've got college football coming up in 3 weeks. We've got the NFL preseason underway. Do you have a strategy at all for the NFL preseason, for betting it? Do you even watch it? I didn't see 1 second of last night's game, not 1 second.
I did. There are some questions that I had with some teams, Detroit being one of them, because not one but two coordinators, pretty important coordinators for that team, are gone for Detroit. So they are working in on both sides of the ball. It wasn't a great showing by them at all. And I think if we've learned anything over the years is you can always trust any head coach with a last name Harbaugh against the spread in the preseason, because both Jim and John have no issues with going out there and, hey, listen, winning's a culture, right? Preseason games, we win preseason, we win in the regular season. I wouldn't bet against those two guys moving forward here.
Yeah, definitely so. Is there any other team, Joe, that you're watching here next week? I believe next Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we got preseason games.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And it seems to be an awful lot of love on a bounce back year for the 49ers coming up, except I don't know who they're throwing the ball to. They don't have a healthy wide receiver room in any way, shape, or form. And you just, some people would say, overpaid for your quarterback here now, and not taking anything away from him, but is this really a bounce back year for the 49ers? I'm going to be interested to see what we've got here coming up.
All right, Joe. Great to catch up with you as always. Thanks for making the time.
Looking forward to the Yankees and Marlins.
All right, Joe Raineri of the early line. Will I see Joe Raineri at the park this weekend? No is minus 2,000.
If I have to think long and hard about whether or not you're a Hall of Famer, you're not a Hall of Famer. I don't need to argue stats. I don't need to argue whether or not you are great. If Ichiro Suzuki is not a Hall of Famer, we don't need to have a baseball Hall of Fame. Like, just pack it up and shut it down, because that guy was as good of a hitter as we've ever seen. And he was unbelievable from the first time he stepped onto the field for the Mariners until the end.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
It's edge rushers. That's where it is right now. And I think Myles Garrett is in a class of his own. I think TJ Watt's right there. I think Micah Parsons is right there. Certainly, those guys are very, very good. Myles Garrett is in a class of his own. He just absolutely is. When the advanced stats about the double team rate, his quarterback pressure rate, all of that, he just stands a notch. I don't want to say a big gap, but he stands a notch ahead of those guys.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
He'll be your reserve. You know, your extra guy here. Listen, we all need that. I say this all the time about outfielders. Most leagues, I don't know about your league, but we start 5 outfielders. Even if you're in a 10-team league, that's 50 outfielders. Plus you got some guys at utility. Plus you got some guys on reserve. 70 outfielders are gone. All right, so outfielders are extremely valuable here. And Moniak, if he's available, is a nice guy to pick up right now.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
I feel they're all completely justified. You know, the numbers, they're nearly identical. And speaking of identical, I don't know if you saw that one, Craig. That was pretty wild. From winning their first major to winning their 4th major, both Tiger Woods and Scottie Scheffler completed that task in exactly 1,197 days. Both of them, in the exact amount of days, won their 4th major.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Another quick note from Major League Baseball, and maybe more of an interesting story. We'll kind of see what progresses from this, but it looks like the St. Louis Cardinals, who could not trade Nolan Arenado, have decided to place him on the injured list. Arenado just played this week. He's got a shoulder issue. Is this temporary? Is it permanent? I know that they've been looking for a trade partner, and Arenado can veto any trade too. So stay tuned on this one. Interesting story here in St. Louis. All right, as we end the show, we've got new technology in the National Football League and a couple of kids succeeding, one in the swimming pool and 1 on the golf course. We end the show with some last licks. In case you missed it last night, the National Football League put their new first down marker on display. Did you catch it during the game? I did see social media. I said I didn't see any of the game. I guess that's not true because I did go on social media to check this out. So from now on, the chain gang, I guess, is gone. Is that correct? Or is this just for the preseason? I can't recall the new rule. But either way, there was a measurement between the Lions and Chargers in the game last night. And instead of these guys, setting up the chains, they go to the booth and they show a digital first down marker, which was on display last night for the first time. Now, the only question that I have for this is that why was not this not being used for the last 20 years? I guess no one will really know the answer to that. But a perfect graduation from the down markers to digital. The only thing that I could think of is that maybe this pays 2 less officials and they didn't want to, cut officials in the NFL. I'm not really sure what the answer is to this. Oh, I see. Chain gang is still on hand, but they just don't do anything. That's got to be a great job. Anyway, digital first downs coming to a television near you in the National Football League. Well done by the National Football League. They generally don't screw much up, and they didn't screw this up either. All right, now let's get to a couple of youth stories as we wrap up the show. This is a name that I had never heard of before until yesterday, doing some research for the show today. The name is Yu Zidi, who becomes the youngest swimmer ever to reach a final and win a medal at World Championships. Now, we're seeing kids younger and younger at the Olympics participate at a very high level. Yu Zidi, folks, is not even 13 years old. She is 12 years old and becomes the youngest swimmer ever to reach a final. This is going on, of course, overseas. And kudos to her because, again, youth sports, I'm really, clearly very much into youth sports, having a son who participates, and to see somebody who is 12 win medals and do this and now potentially participate in next summer's Olympics is absolutely incredible. Speaking of incredible, that's the name for Charlie Woods, Tiger Woods' son, at it again. And this time, Charlie Woods is in the final group at the Junior PGA Championship. Now, if Charlie finishes in second place, that will earn a spot for him on the Junior Ryder Cup team. And in case you are asking the question, when can Charlie participate on the actual PGA Tour? Still a few years away, but there's no question that he still is very, very much considered one of the best youth golfers in the world. And if he keeps going on this trajectory, there is a chance, and an outside chance, he could be one of the youngest players ever on the PGA Tour as well. So we'll see what Charlie Woods does this weekend. And if it is something good, we'll update it for you here on the show coming up next week as well. All right, that will do it for our show today and our week-long shows here, of course, on NewsWire. Also, a quick programming reminder that today at 3:30 Eastern, for those of you who are around, you can catch Fantasy Sports Today with me and George Kurtz, getting you ready for the upcoming fantasy football season. In addition, want to thank our guests here on the show for coming on. Thanks to Melissa Kim for talking some Baltimore Ravens football. Thanks to Bill Bender from Sporting News with some college football, our buddy Joe Raineri from SportsGrid, and also Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report. If you're interested this weekend in watching some Major League Baseball and getting ready for the preseason and using a second screen for your sports betting apps, make sure you take out your phone right now and scan this QR code. It is the SportsGrid app. It's available for both iOS and Android. We're streaming 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It has all the news, notes, and information and every point spread that you could possibly imagine going into whatever your favorite sporting event is. Gives you some tips, too, on how to properly bet these as well. Our director for the show, as always, is Luke, and our producer is Frank. I'm Craig Mish. I hope you enjoy the weekend here on SportsGrid and enjoy everything that goes along with it. We're closing in on football season, folks, and we'll have a lot more coverage of both college and pro football for you starting Monday of next week exclusively here on NewsWire. Have a great weekend, everyone. See you then.